welcome to Doors and Corners, a sci-fi and fantasy film commentary podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Zach. And every Friday we sit down and watch a science fiction or fantasy film and give our 2 cents on its quality, production, story, and trivia.
We watch the film together, but without sounds or visuals provided to avoid copyright issues. But if you do have access, we encourage you to join us and follow along.
Here, we like to keep things casual, and there may be discussions of spoilers or sensitive materials or language. But we do try and keep things clean and family-friendly. Ultimately, the goal of this podcast is to create the experience of us all sitting down and watching this movie together.
So get ready to hit that play button, because we're about to get started.
Damn Doors and Corners, that's where they get you.
Welcome back to Doors and Corners. I'm Brian.
I'm Zach. Are we really doing this again?
We are doing this again. You know, we are almost wrapping up our first year. Crazy.
Oh my god, you're totally right. But thankfully we're wrapping it up with actually one of the greatest movie trilogies of all time.
Oh yeah.
Perhaps second only to The Lord of the Rings.
You know what's funny? I think that for anybody wondering, Back to the Future Part 3, but in the conversations for great trilogies, I think sometimes for some reason this trilogy gets left out. And I don't think it gets left out because it's not highly regarded by basically anybody who loves cinema. I think it's almost just taken for granted. Well, of course, Back to the Future is one of the best. You know, you almost don't even need to talk about it because it's, you know, such a given how phenomenal this trilogy is. And in a way, that's kind of sad because it should, you know, be part of that fun conversation. You know, in Lord of the Rings, the original Star Wars trilogy. You know, trying to think of my brain is not working. Even despite the third one, I know it's not a genre film, but Godfather is an important trilogy in film.
I was just about to make a Godfather joke.
No,
if they hadn't biffed it with the third one, and it's always the third one. That's like one of the problems that you see with a lot of movies is that it's often the third one. Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Okay. And The Godfather Part 3.
It is
despite some of its other issues, the Hobbit movies, the third one was the weakest. Return of the Jedi was the weakest of the Star Wars trilogy, which it just...
Well, isn't that strange that Lucas was able to reverse that by making the third the strongest in the prequel trilogy?
Yeah, I mean, Attack of the Clones is hand down the worst, and you can fight me on that.
Oh, no,
that wasn't you?
No, I was about to say, if years and years ago, I just by default thought that Phantom Menace was the worst, and now I will hard defend Phantom Menace as being far superior to Attack of the Clones.
Or superior.
No.
Back to the Future.
Yeah, Back to the Future.
Good.
Well, and we were talking a little bit before we started recording, but even though I would say that this is probably the weakest out of this trilogy, I don't mean that's never meant for me as a knock. I still love this movie. This movie is fun. This movie is loaded with references and Easter eggs that are all just in such great spirit. There's themes that are so strong in this film as far as just the lessons that are learned. I mean, kind of getting to switch to Doc a little bit with the focus of the story. And there's so much in this film to love that, I mean, this is one of those that if you know, 1 is a 10 and 2 is a 9.5, like this is a 9.3 or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm making that up in my head literally as I say that, but to say this is the weakest for me is not a knock at all. It's still an amazing film. That's so much fun to watch.
No, I have a very similar rating system for it. I consider, you know, the original a literal like perfect 10. I consider 2 a 9, and I consider this like an 8 to an 8.5.
Yeah. I meant to ask you this off camera or off mic, but it works for here too. I've said this many times. You know this about me. I love Westerns. I grew up with Westerns. I'm a sucker for Westerns. But I actually don't really know much about what your general vibe is on the Western genre.
So I grew up, my grandfather adored Westerns. Like he had a painting of Clint Eastwood in his house.
Nice.
I didn't care for them a lot growing up. And even still, they're not really my go-to. I love things that are essentially like Westerns, but not Westerns. A couple of my favorite books have been like, it's the Old West and cowboys, but here's sorcerers. Here's aliens. Here's Lovecraftian creatures. So I've always kind of loved modified westerns, but I remember. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, there's themes from the Western, kind of the staples of the Western genre that are obviously have made it into other genres. I mean, you could argue easily the original Star Wars is straight up a Western in space.
No, well, that's just it, okay? Because Star Wars has a heavy-duty Western influence. The original Star Trek was conceived as literally a wagon train to the stars. It has that, westward ho vibe to it. Firefly is literally a Western in space. And so that influenced me a lot. But the one that got me, okay, because part of it is growing up, I didn't care for like Western history. Now, this isn't anything against culture or people, but I never enjoyed stories, mythology, learning a lot about like Native American stuff. That particular culture just never grabbed me the way that others like further south with like Aztec. I like heavy mythology, so Aztec, Egyptian,
Norse?
Greek, stuff like that. Norse, not as much. That's a different conversation for another time. But for some reason, well, not for some reason, it's mainly because I'm surrounded by a bunch of idiots who think that they're modern day Vikings, and I'm like, I'm descended from Vikings. They were assholes.
Yes.
Which they all were in their own different ways.
Oh yeah, but to say every great empire really has a lot of them.
I don't dig the big fur, and I don't really like their aesthetic, I guess. And you know what part of it is? They didn't build really cool things. I like boats. I like log cabins well enough, but there's no pyramids. There's no giant built palaces and cool things we get to look at today, or just a bunch of dudes living in houses who got on boats and killed people. But back to westerns.
What to say?
Tombstone. My dad didn't watch Tombstone around me because he thought that it was too violent and I was young. And then he just kind of got out of it because my mom didn't like the movie. And my dad preferred Kevin Costner's Wyatt Earp because it was more historically accurate. And we live in an area where Wyatt Earp and his, quest for vengeance actually took place, with a couple of people being hunted down and killed not too far from here even. And so it's just like, he thought that Tombstone was just kind of comic booky. And one day, he does put it on because he's like, you know what? I want to see this movie again. I was like 17, 18, and I was like instantly in love with the movie.
It's a fantastic movie.
Oh my gosh, I still get the theme stuck in my head sometimes, and it's an absolute travesty that the official version has never been released due to some sort of weird rights issue. So they just have kind of subpar covers on Spotify. But essentially, my love of certain westerns exists, but as a genre, as a film genre especially, it's not in my top 5. It's probably not even in my top 10, and there's not that many genres. I just don't have a huge interest in it.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, I don't. That's totally fine. It's definitely, I think you have to be raised with it in a way. And I just quite literally wasn't given a choice. Both with sci-fi and with westerns. I've said this a few times in the podcast. I wasn't raised on cartoons. I was raised on John Wayne and Cary Grant, and Star Trek. Like that was those. Those are the guys I was raised on, along with many, many other classic actors. Those are just the two that I think of that are some of my favorites. But I just always, they were just always in the rotation. It was the old James Cagney gangster films. It was the old John Wayne westerns and World War II films. It was the old the Cary Grant comedies. It was, that's what I was raised on. And so to me, that was just, if I was a kid and I wanted to watch TV, that's what I did. And I really latched on early to the very, and I'll gladly admit, early westerns lacked complexity. Although there's some great examples where people say, oh, they're all just, guys in white hats versus guys in black hats, and John Wayne's a, one note guy. It's like, all right, I get that if you've only seen part of his filmography, but there's some really complicated. Anyways, sorry, whole rabbit trail on westerns there. But I did latch on early to just those core themes of being a good man, of standing up for people who are in harm, of, taking care of your own problems and helping people who need help and pushing yourself because it's the right thing to do, and, doing the right thing even when nobody's. I mean, there's a lot of those kind of classic Judeo-Christian, old school American values that westerns didn't by any means invent, but they were very heavy on. The same thing with the old World War II films, the very patriotic gung-ho World War II films. It was very core to, the Superman, the old Superman stuff. It was all in that soup. I mean, Captain Kirk, it was all in that soup of entertainment that was such a heavy influence on me growing up. And, and I love to this day, and I'm glad as I've gotten older and, deepened, what I enjoy, and all those subjects have complexity and have nuance and have, depending on the individual and the situation and all that, and that's fine. I'm always happy to have that conversation, but I still have this love for that kind of old school, simple, straightforward set of themes that westerns were one of the best examples of, in my opinion. And this film, I think that's one of the reasons too with Back to the Future. At its core, the themes for Back to the Future are simple themes of learn when to stand up for yourself, learn when to back down and turn the other cheek because the bully ain't worth it. Marty and his dad kind of both, are interesting examples of that. For Marty and for Doc, having to balance their own personal desires versus the good of the whole, the timeline. And I mean, there's some core themes in these films that I love because they're presented in this really cool genre, time travel, a lot of comedy. I mean, all this dressing that just makes it so much fun. And it's such a tight script that calls itself back so many times. But underneath it, it still has these like core old school themes of doing the right thing, being a good person, learning how to grow and mature outside of your own limitations. I mean, I love that. And I think that those are valuable and worth revisiting on a regular basis.
So you mean toxic masculinity?
It's just to anybody who thinks that kind of stuff is toxic, we can do another podcast about that because I will. It's
Same thing. Same thing.
Oh, I know you're just teasing me, but like, is there such a thing as toxic masculinity? Absolutely, there is. Is there such a thing as good, mature, strong, like needed masculinity? Absolutely, there is, and I will argue that to my grave. So
heck yeah.
Anyways,
but we should get started on this.
We should.
What
this
we have
is
here
2
today,
hours.
Everyone. Yeah, that we do. This one is Back to the Future Part 3. This was released in 1990, PG by today's standards, and it is 1 hour and 58 minutes long. Directed by Robert Zemeckis again, written by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale again. And, shockingly enough, this is starring Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Tom Wilson, Leah Thompson, and the new addition on this one is Mary Steenburgen. I always mess up that name, who I more associate with her being the mom in everything. Like...
Oh, yeah. In the 90s, she really was, yeah.
A lot of it also like the 2000s, though, because, I mean, we're talking about stuff like
I think of Mrs. Doubtfire.
Step Brothers, yeah. Oh, Mrs. Doubtfire, that's right. But also,
what am I?
The Proposal.
I'm sorry. I'm a moron
Elf?
because Mrs. Doubtfire was Sally Field, and I'm sorry for anybody who's like,
okay.
does this guy even? No, that's so no. She was I apologize for anybody. I do know that was wrong. So there you go. I'll let you continue.
Well, I mean, that's those are the ones that I remember off the top of my head. If I were to actually go look for it, I'd have to dig through. But I remember her specifically from Elf and Step Brothers, even though I didn't even like that movie, and The Proposal. But I know that there were others.
Oh, she was in The Proposal.
Oh,
that's
Help.
Right.
She was in The Help.
Yeah. Well, she definitely has a just a nurturing quality about her, and I mean that in a good way, because it's just she plays the type of person you would want, because she usually plays a mom who's the sympathetic, I'm here for you, I'm not going to be judgmental, I'm just the very gentle, nurturing type, which is wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Very much agree.
And she's also very funny, like very low key funny.
Yeah. No, she does really well. She has good comedic timing in the way that she always seems like she's being the butt of the joke and doesn't always realize it, or is otherwise just flabbergasted. But
well,
movie time.
Yeah, movie time. Yeah, this is sure we'll be talking a lot through it. We are gonna start this recording together. We always invite you guys to watch it with us. We hope you do from time to time. It hopefully makes our comments make more sense. But we are gonna hit that play button in 3, 2, 1, go.
Going.
I was right away. I love that. I believe this was the first, like the premiere of the 75th anniversary of Universal. The logo.
That is correct. This is the first time that it was used in a film, when they just go through all of the different Universal logos across the years, to be like, yes, here it is.
I forget sometimes how old Universal is. I mean, it's one of the oldest film production companies in the world.
Yeah. And it's always quiet on this one, because I'm like, wait, is there sound? Am I not getting any sound?
Yeah.
But no, it's just quiet.
Because now I know Zemeckis on this one, right? He was literally editing too while he was filming this at the beginning, and just kind of almost killing himself trying to get both going at the same time.
Yeah, he was a busy man. I do not envy him any of that.
Yeah. Well, especially back then when all the editing had to happen, manually with actual film versus digital editing. It's not like you could just edit in your hotel room.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Okay, so this was, I'm sure you saw this in videos, but I had never heard of this before, that you can watch one and then go right to this, and it kind of works in a weird way.
I can see that, yeah.
Because the way that the ending of one and the beginning of this are just dovetailed almost exactly. And not that you should watch it that order, but that it's interesting. You almost follow Doc's point of view in an interesting way if you do that. I had never heard that before this week, and I was like, "Hey, that's interesting. I kind of want to do that now."
Yeah, no, I could totally see that. This is one of those things where they had to refilm some of this, and if you can look really closely, you can see that there's mats on the ground that are on fire instead of there being chemicals. But the other scene branches over to this one, so you can see the fire change.
Well, because this is filmed about 5 years apart, right? I think original Back to the Future was 85.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They had a heck of a time getting all the sets right.
Yeah. Man, I'm back from the future.
I feel like I feel like somebody out there would have wanted to rename all these movies, like Back to the Future, Back to the Past, and then Back from the Future.
Could see that for fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
I don't necessarily be the biggest fan of it.
No, I mean, I think you can get too clever sometimes, for sure. But it also can be fun, for sure. I mean, so when we come back here to the house, there's so many little things that when it just goes through it, that you can just pick up. They really, I mean, man, the set dressers and production design team really did such a good job.
And they had a ball. You can tell they had a ball. For the one that I remember that was pointed out to me is that we see the inside of his bathroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the bathroom is a clock on the wall. And it's just kind of, it feels a little bit out of place for there to be a clock in the bathroom. And even though it's just a small little detail in the back, because not everybody would have a clock in the bathroom. Why do they have a clock in the bathroom? Because he specifically tells the story in the first one about having a clock in the bathroom.
Yeah. He slipped and hit his head while he was
And-
hanging it.
Exactly. Also, you can see the rain line where they're pouring rain, but it's not hitting the house.
Yeah. Well, they had their limitations.
Hmm.
Yeah, got all the
The-
scientists, the letter draw. I do love the detail they're drawing the letter out right there. Because
Yeah.
like you pointed out, last week, how much it bugged you that he just letting the letter get soaked. The hoverboard.
The
And,
dog, which this one's Copernicus. I
Yeah,
believe.
Copernicus. Yeah, not Einstein. Einstein would not be born for quite a while since he was from
Oh,
'85.
that's right. I forgot. Kathleen Kennedy worked on this movie. Did you know
Well,
that?
because she started working with Lucas and Spielberg
Mhm.
in the mid '80s, right? She wasn't back
Yeah, she
like
was
with the
a-
original
She was a
Star.
producer on this.
Yeah, I knew that she wasn't back in the original Star Wars, but she hooked up with both of them as just a. She started kind of at the bottom, right, and just worked her way up.
Yeah. Which is admirable, but I want her fired from Lucasfilm because I don't think she does a good job at Star Wars. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I completely agree.
Never forgive her. Never forgive her.
Yeah,
Howdy
do
Doody
lo-
Time has always scared the crap out of me.
I love too though. Just again right away they're teasing the Western with Had to Duty Time. He just immediately starts recording like his thoughts.
Yeah.
I would say too, Doc Brown is a very consistent character. Just, he kind of never, it's very rare in these films for him to not act in character as established in these films. You know what I mean? Like so often in films, you can be like, well, that doesn't make sense for this character as they've been, kind of shown to us. It doesn't make sense why they'd make this decision. And Doc Brown is one of those great examples of a character that's written and then just kind of stays true to the concept so through and through.
Yeah. This whole rant and monologue, it's a great little recap, and then just the humor of it.
Oh yeah, I mean they there's so many great physical gags, even like they're on the piano.
organ.
It's so good.
It's the scary notes.
He's like rigid. He's like Christopher Lloyd's his physical comedy is so good.
Yeah, this makes me want to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit so bad.
Just like right there. Oh gosh, he's
Another thing
hilarious.
we were discussing is that he actually appeared in Star Wars not too long ago in an unfortunately not great episode of The Mandalorian. And he's even funny in that. Even if it's not very good.
Yeah. No, he is just one of those actors. He's just a gem. He I know that you're not a huge sitcom guy, at least not the same sitcoms I enjoy. But he was a huge creative force in Frasier. He was
he?
Yeah, for years he was a producer and writer. And some of the best seasons Frasier ever had when it was winning Emmys like every single year. Christopher Lloyd is one of the main creative powers behind that show. So he's also a fantastic writer.
Yeah.
But I love this. I mean, all the callbacks. The models back there. The brain device. I mean, this is like just a tour through the first two films.
Mhm.
If you're paying attention with so many things, it's great.
Yeah.
And then how much of this, when we get to his lair in the West, that there's so many similarities. It's just that he's a creature of habit. He has the way he likes things, the way that he works in the space. It's just those deep. But again, he's the kind of guy who would be that way.
Yeah. I love his excitement at becoming a blacksmith in the Old West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. I also love too, we're gonna start getting into here, all the Jules Verne references, and specifically Journey to the Center of the Earth that we're gonna get leading up to where they find the DeLorean, and then when he goes back and then kind of bonds with Claire in the Old West. I love Jules Verne, and it's fun how many little sprinkles of references they get in this film too.
Oh, very much so. I wasn't a fan of I wasn't a fan. I was just completely ignorant of Jules Verne for a while as a kid. I was ambivalent because I found his stories they weren't actiony enough. They weren't as fun. I wanted to read crazy adventure things. It wasn't until later that I realized these are really good and good adventure things.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and again, so much of the foundations for science fiction, go back to the concepts laid out by him and H.G. Wells, and some of these other, just writers that really kind of set the genre up for us.
Yeah.
These little, this little again, very Doc to have the instructions in there, like little reminders. The dog's playing chess. Or at least make it kind of look like it. I don't know if the dog's supposed to have been playing chess, but like all the wires going to it.
I assumed he played chess with his dog.
Yeah. It's just, again, there's so much. I mean, talk about storytelling. You're being told, I mean, and this is true, not just this film, but all three of them. You know so much about Doc. You learn so much about Doc, not only by how he acts and what he says, but by the environments that he exists in. I mean, and it really is environmental storytelling at some of its finest in these films.
And by the environments he creates, and like how even all of his plans, which can occasionally come across as rather harebrained, are all very well thought out and planned.
Well, and he's constantly apologizing for like his plans too not being, the way he like apologizes about like the models not being quite ready yet and stuff like that. That he's a perfectionist, but he moves so fast he can never do everything quite as good as he wants, because he's just always on to the next thing or the next version of it.
It's still incredible.
Oh yeah.
And this movie moves quick. Like, look how fast they went from just that scene to boom, blowing up a mine.
Yep.
I always forget about that transition, and it always like kind of shocks me,
Yeah. Oh yeah, they don't
Always
waste any time. The dog with the helmet is great.
Mm-hmm.
So here's our first Jules Verne, he says it. And then even when he finds his initials, I mean, in the book, Journey to the Center of the Earth, that's how, the main characters find their way. They're following the path of a former adventurer who leaves his initials. It's just like little stuff like that. It's just great.
Doesn't that adventure in Journey to the Center of the Earth end up dead? They like find his corpse.
Yes, but we you can just don't worry about that.
Yeah, you just infer it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things is that in Journey to the Center of the Earth, he was constantly leaving his initials, the former adventurer whose name escapes me all of a sudden.
Yeah. I've forgotten his. I have not actually read that book in quite a long time, but
I don't know if I ever actually read the whole thing. I think I saw like a little animated synopsis of it back when I was like, oh, I need to know about this thing, but I don't want to actually have to take the time to read it. Could you imagine digging around and finding like a preserved car?
That would be that'd be a trip.
Yeah.
I do love that the joke about Japan, especially in the 80s, is just great. When it was just dominating the economy. And I'm just imagining too, these documents and the instructions, and I love how detailed Doc is too. Again, his plans are just the fun, the little gag with a magnifying glass. I mean, it's so simple, but it's just funny.
Always a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has the attached diagrams, and then the other one, previously when he's just like this ad hoc map or improvised map. I hope it'll be good enough, and it's like this incredibly detailed map of the mine.
Yeah. Just, oh goodness. I love that. Realism. The tires between the lightning and just time. Those are gone.
Yeah, could you imagine having to get that out of the mine though?
Oh gosh. So they have.
I mean, it does have the railroad tracks in there.
Yeah, well, the railroad tracks are there, and one of those fun little trivia things that the DeLorean happens to have the exact right width, that they didn't even have to modify it to make it run on railroad tracks in this film.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are all the same. Like cars, they have a whole bunch of trucks, especially living here next to, I think, the largest train depot in the United States. That. You see trucks sometimes with the wheels that run along tracks instead.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is, they everything has been like the same width essentially since the Roman developed roads. Like cars can be bigger than what we've got, but they're not, because they need to fit on our roads, and our roads are modeled after train tracks, which is modeled after horse and buggy, which is modeled after chariots. Everything goes off of how wide two horses standing next to each other are.
That's, I never thought of it quite that way, but you're totally right.
Yeah.
I do love the old tech too, like the flashlights and stuff. Just that they have the kind of period accurate gear.
Yeah.
It's Clara. Oh, that's great. Standing on his
Wow.
grave.
I feel like someone just walked over your grave.
Yep. What kind of? Oh, it's great. I
I
mean,
love it.
they again too. I do think that Mr. Wilson gets a little less of the praise than he deserves sometimes, because as much
Yeah,
as
agreed.
obviously Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox are the stars of these films, if he hadn't been as good as he was, this whole trilogy would have suffered.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that little excuse though, you know. Um the little thing like they don't have a lot of records because Buford Tannen killed a journalist who wrote a bad story about him. It's a little overlooked line, but it's the type of line that these movies just excel at.
Oh yeah,
Though actually that's also the type of line that's lacking in this movie for two other plot points we'll talk about a little bit later.
yeah,
Because this movie does have technically a couple of plot holes. But
yeah,
they're not so much plot holes that you don't need to you can't fill them in with your imagination very easily.
yeah. It's
Um,
it's probably for as many callbacks as it has, it's probably the least like tight as far as just how much everything is kind of accounted for in a way. But it still
Yeah.
is like, I mean, especially by modern standards, incredibly well
Mm-hmm.
written. I
very
love
much
this.
so.
To replicate a microchip in the 50s, you would need that. Actually, not that exaggerated as far as,
Yeah.
yeah, if you were trying to use cathode ray tubes and like 50s tech to like replicate one tiny little SD card sized microchip. Yeah.
Yeah. The,
So
the Western.
the Western, and so the two posters that those are
Yeah.
early Clint Eastwood films that he was like kind of unknown in.
Yeah, he was like small bit parts or an extra.
Yeah. Now, have
Yeah.
you? I mean, we talked about westerns at the beginning of this episode. Have you seen the spaghetti westerns that Clint Eastwood's famous for? Like, did you see Fistful of Dollars and
You see
those specific westerns?
glimpses, you know, they were all R-rated or something like that. Or maybe my mom didn't like them, but it's just not this type of stuff that my dad would put on, you know?
Okay. At some point,
Yeah.
you should do just a few of the big ones, because I think you'd be like, wow, there's so much influence to other film that's just there.
Also, this is the only time when we get an indication of where Hill Valley is located. Because Hill Valley, they mentioned it's like California, but it could be anywhere. It could be Southern California, it could be Northern California, could be near the coast, whatever. Because it just looks so blandly Californian. But now we have the confirmation that it's somewhere in like the mid to west Southern California. Because if he's able to walk there from here, you know, from the Mojave,
Yeah.
where there were Indian tribes active, then it's pretty obvious that it would need to be in that area.
So this is one of the uses of that. I love the line, "You're not thinking fourth dimensionally."
Yeah.
And it's just a great line. I'm not sure if fourth dimension is time technically, but it does work for this particular plot.
It does. I don't necessarily know that a 1955 scientist would consider a fourth dimension that's not time. I mean, maybe they would, and I'm not giving proper credit. Quantum physics was being developed like as early as what, 1911?
I honestly don't
earlier
know.
than that even.
Yeah.
Well, just remember that quantum physics is confusing, but it's not nearly as confusing as you think. Oh, I love this gun.
Yeah, this big old just.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's not nearly as confusing as you would think in relation to the idea that quantum just stands for quantitative, quantity.
Yeah.
It's like some great science fiction buzzword, quantum. It just means, what's it made of?
Yeah. It's used as that. Yeah. Just throw it on the front of anything, and all of a sudden now it's high tech. Man, this is a great
gotta
transition
say-
here.
Oh, it is. It's such a good gag, too. He's like, I'm gonna run right into those Indians. And look at that. He's gonna run right into those Indians.
Oh gosh.
The thing is, it's not even what do you call it? It's not even just a gag. It's actually part of the plot.
Yeah,
They use it,
man, this would be rough ground for a car.
right?
Oh man, and the cavalry showing up too, and it's just yeah. Oh man,
Yeah,
there's
I
some low key great
may
stunt
have
work.
driven. I
Go
may
ahead.
have driven in a Honda across ground similar to that, and it is not easy. The slippage is insane.
Oh yeah, this like really fine dirt. Yeah, just
Mm-hmm. In
well,
fact, I think I went to your house right after that.
that's right. You did because you were telling me about some of the damage inflicted to your vehicle.
Yeah, necessary off-roading due to some. I trusted the wrong Google map. Oh goodness. Yeah.
Oh man.
But why are they just riding in a line all angrily? Where are they going?
Yeah.
Like, were they attacking something? Were they just kind of having a good time? We're just gonna go out for a ride.
Oh, and then
Mm.
yeah, you got the cavalry that shows up here.
Oh, that actually
Yeah.
explains my question.
They're
I forgot about this.
they're running. I was about to say like I think they're running from the cavalry, but the
Yeah.
cavalry.
The cavalry. Which the cavalry has arrived. I don't know. I always think of the TV show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is way better than people give it credit for, but is also not the greatest in a lot of ways, especially because its first 12 episodes just suck. But they have a character on there who's just referred to as the cavalry for a long time, so it always makes me think of Ming Na.
I love the arrow. Great.
Yeah. It's just like, uh-oh, SpaghettiOs.
Well, and that's not really even what killed it. It's that man driving that fast over that rough terrain. Oh yeah, you would absolutely tear up something.
Yeah.
And they've already established in 2 that the DeLorean is not the toughest of vehicles.
No, it really wasn't. One of the reasons it never really took off is because it's fragile.
And the bear.
Oh, I forgot about the bear.
Oh yeah, that's the reason
I
he
love bears.
yeah, it's the reason he doesn't have boots or a hat.
Oh, yeah.
Man, Michael J. Fox, he has just a great face for like a scream, you know?
Yeah. That's
There goes the boots.
pretty good, though. I mean, it obviously had to have been a stuntman or a trainer running from the bear, but still, it was pretty good.
And once again, we smack our head.
And he is knocked the hell out. I like the slapping. And a bowler hat.
I think Michael J. Fox, he had fun with all the various other roles he got to play. And of course, we get for the third film in a row, this whole sequence, which has been done with Leah Thompson. every film.
For some reason, it took me a long time to even realize that was Leah Thompson. In this particular instance. These movies do so many things just over and over and over again, but the variations, you just want to sit there and go, how are they going to do it this time?
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting because the first 2 films, it's, just like what is going to be like the trigger that like wakes him up hard.
Yeah.
Interesting too. This is the first time too where she's not immediately like infatuated with him or like attracted to him or something kind of creepy,
Was his mother attracted to him?
Oh yeah, she was like being
future?
all. Oh no, she well, not like attracted necessarily, but she was definitely a little over. It was some creepiness going on there.
I get that.
I mean, nothing compared to his mom in the 50s, wanting to do him, but
yeah.
I mean, that was just like wow. So
that was
your mom was like ready to jump right in the 50s, which is interesting.
Oh man!
At least he has his pants on in this one,
right? Actually, you see him check.
Yeah, he does. He looks down.
He like looks for his pants.
It's great. Oh.
Now the question is, were they like related? Because does his bloodline just go for women who look like that?
I mean, it is one of those that if you kind of dig into it, it's a little disturbing, honestly.
Mm.
I think it's one of those things that you just kind of enjoy the gag and don't think too hard about, because it would definitely take you down some interesting holes.
My horse broke down.
It ate my boots. I love this water. Just,
yeah.
I mean,
The-
again, realistic.
Not really though.
Really?
This is one of those things where it's just like water. It's a life sustainer, but the means of purifying water and making sure that you're drinking water correctly is one of those things that every human culture has kind of figured out until because the ones who didn't survive.
Yeah. You're not necessarily
So
wrong, I guess.
love the gag though.
Yeah.
I love this though.
The buckshot.
The buckshot. Yeah.
Or I guess it would technically be birdshot at that size, but yeah. I mean, I guess you're right. It wouldn't, they exaggerated, but it wouldn't be like, crystal clear, filtered water. But yeah, they definitely exaggerated how dirty that water was.
Yeah. I mean, getting hung up on dirty waters, but yeah. Now, okay, the chairs though. The chairs stuck out to me. You see the chairs?
They're a little too nice.
It's not they're too nice. Those are everywhere. I had those dining room chairs.
Ah.
I see them at yard sales and all this stuff. Like, it's the pattern on the back.
I mean, I do hear you in that. I know a version of that chair has existed in like, every household in America in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Right. And yeah, I remember seeing that when I was little. I'm like, those look like our chairs. And then I realized just how incredibly common that pattern was, and because I always kind of hated them.
Yeah. It's always a fun little gag. And you peed on me.
That's a baby for you.
Oh, man. The Nikes.
Tennis shoes are useful, but they're not always great for that long thing.
It really is.
The bowler hats.
It's so bad. It's just. And then, of course, we got the Hill Valley kind of reveal shot.
Yep, because every single one of them has this dolly shot. And the second one actually does it twice.
That's right, because they do it in the future, and they do it in the alternate 1985, right?
Correct. And some of the little details, though, like the tents off to the left here, bathhouse, which means that, you can go there and get a bath, but it's also for other things.
Yeah.
But this set was used for a lot of Westerns.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there were Clint Eastwood films that were shot at this set, so.
It's funny, there's all these Clint Eastwood movies that are referenced in here, and then one of the really funny things, the movie Unforgiven, right? Big hit.
Mm-hmm.
It was knocked out of its number one spot at the movie theaters in 1985 by Back to the Future.
Really?
I thought that was funny.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Unforgiven? You must be thinking of a different. But to say Unforgiven was in the 90s for sure. So
yeah, it definitely.
You're thinking of a different Clint Eastwood film?
Yeah, the big one was Pale Rider.
Pale Rider was definitely a big one. That might have been mid 80s.
Might have been that one. Oh no, I feel dumb. But yeah, the building of the clock tower. But already so many little things. One of those tombstones that the guy was hammering is the tombstone for Doc Brown. He just passed by all those stoves, and later he does the whole stove lid thing.
It is Pale Rider, by the way.
Gone to Hayesville for the hanging of Stinky Lummox. I love that name. It's so ridiculous.
Well, Wells Fargo?
Uh-huh. Good old Wells Fargo. They've been around for a long time. I see a picture of those little wagon trains every single time I log on to my banking.
Yep. The manure. The manure everywhere.
Like, why would you step in it again? Move, sir.
Yeah, it's a little. I mean,
Eastwood did give his permission for all these little references. He
thought
it was great.
Yeah, he thought it was fun. I do love that too. That the town's under construction. They have. It's not just a clock tower. That like so much of the town is still being built, which makes sense for this era. I mean, you've got to have in a Western the iconic, both hands on the saloon doors. Just that very iconic walking into a saloon shot. I mean, this has been done so many times that I'm glad they did it.
And
And-
these three guys are all classic Western actors. One of them is even in Tombstone. He plays the marshal that gets murdered.
Yeah.
And he's actually a descendant of the marshal that was actually murdered in Marshall White, I believe it was, in Tombstone, that started the cowboy gang war.
Yeah, that is right.
Mhm.
This,
And he's
this,
there.
this bartender
Oh,
has
the
such a
Pepsi.
this bartender, just a small little role, but he does a great job of just like the watering hole bartender.
Yeah, he always looks kind of like a corpse.
Yeah, he's got a very
I
flat
don't know.
face.
There's just something about him. It's not just that. It's like
I
I don't know.
love
He
the
reminds me of like a
steam.
Frankenstein.
Sorry, I love the detail of the whiskey, like burning the wood and like steaming almost. It's
Oh,
just
is that what it was?
something. Yeah, like he pours it and it like seems
I never understood the steaming.
okay. It's just because it's like so strong. It's just
And once again, the same thing. It's always a tannin, and he's
Yep.
always yelling at McFly.
make
Thought I
fly.
told you, come in here. It is a dog ugly hat.
Oh man, I love to. I mean, it would have been fun if they had somehow gotten the same guys for like his posse, his gang. But from what I understand, these guys were actually chosen because they could already, do all the horse stuff. It was just easier to stick with people who could actually ride horses.
Yeah.
But I'm just like,
Yeah, that makes
if
a
they
lot
had,
of
if they had actually had Billy Zane in this group, it would have been fun.
Right? I mean, shortly after this, he did a whole bunch of horse training in order to do stunts in The Phantom. You ever see The Phantom?
It's been a long time.
Now, that's a movie we need to cover because it is awful and it is great.
Yeah, it's on the list. It's I just again, those little things. His eyes too, like just the way he just flares like that, the big white of his eyes open, just looks like Mad Dog. I mean, he must have had so much fun with this role.
I hope so. He makes these movies.
Did he
This
ever
series,
do-
I don't think the series would be nearly as legendary as it is without him.
Yeah,
But he doesn't get nearly enough credit for it.
yeah. I guess I was saying earlier, he's such an important part, just as much. I honestly, just as important as Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd, as far as just this all working. Although once again, we
Anyone
get the
who's-
Michael J. Fox, not Michael J. Fox. Wow.
Oh,
Yeah, Michael Jackson reference, which you gotta have. Oh, that would be so nasty.
yeah.
Just-
Yes, for those of you who don't know, that's called a spittoon.
Just
And spittoons are where people spit. They'd spit their tobacco, they'd spit liquor. It's essentially a whole bunch of gross, nasty spit.
yeah, it would smell horrible. It'd be sticky. It's just nasty.
Gross.
I do love that the old guys called him Squirrel, and they're like, "You better run, Squirrel." It just the idea like, yeah, you were at the bottom of this particular food chain.
Right?
So I
Um,
wonder how much of his own stunt work Tom Wilson did.
Well, Apparently he wanted to do quite a lot, but they did have to replace him with some more highly trained people in a few spots because it was just necessary, you know? But yeah, the dragging though is just nasty.
Yeah.
He'd be so torn up if he was actually being dragged like that. They've got a guy
Oh.
just covered in padding there.
Oh yeah, I
And-
mean, I'm glad that even though it's still toned down quite a bit for this film, that he is still portrayed as being quite beat up already. I mean, like barely able to even move, which is at least going in the right direction. Now there's
Did you read about this
there's
scene?
about to say like there's some story about this scene. Go ahead and tell us.
Oh, yeah. So in this scene, it's this hanging. They tried to get a couple of scenes with him, like standing on a box and everything, but it didn't quite look right. And so he had this whole rig, but part of it was him keeping his hands around the rope, but during one take it slipped, and he actually choked and blacked out, and they had to stop filming for a little bit in order to let him recover, and it was pretty bad on him. And he started having a twitch in his finger that he thought was from his hand started twitching, and he thought that it was from that happening, and he was really worried about it. So he went to the doctor, and that's how he got diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it started happening when he was this young.
Yeah, it's just sad. Him shooting Marty down, another reference to Clint Eastwood, as he did that, and it's actually 2 or 3 of his films, but most famously from Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's a great introduction to Doc also, because this is a confident Doc in a way that we haven't seen before. He's just, the fact that he's just very, he has this confidence about it, the way he's not as nervous.
Yeah, well, in the first one, or in the second one, when they're in the future, he's like really worried about getting everything done in time. In this one, there's no pressure for time.
Yeah. And
he's just like, this is his element. He's comfortable here. He's been here for months, I think, by then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love those clothes. You're gonna get shot.
Yeah.
Or hanged. Yeah. You
did.
Oh, man.
You'd think that he'd remember that, right?
Oh, it's fun. I mean, bringing the photo would be I love this. The look on his face. It's so good. He has this way of like looking kind of into the distance, like you can tell he's all in his own head as he's just talking to himself, and kind of like he's talking to himself, but kind of Marty at the same time.
Yeah.
This
whole
machine,
thing, because he's talking about like the results could disrupt this time-space continuum as he's working on this machine that obviously does not belong in 1885.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, you could just see that he's been here a while, possibly even like over a year.
Yeah, it could have been.
I don't know. It's just everything's really well dressed out.
Yeah. Now, did you ever see Chitty Chitty Bang Bang with Dick Van Dyke? Growing up?
No, never did. My mom hated it.
Okay, it's not like an amazing film, although it definitely is one that was in my rotation growing up. And apparently a lot of the Doc Brown like inventions and kind of machines were based on that character, from what I understand.
Yeah,
including the ice machine, and some of his like make the automated like feeding Einstein in the first one, and although I love this also because he says it here, but a scientist would just not. It wouldn't process for him that would even be like a possibility.
Well, I mean, I'd never experienced anything like that. I don't, it's just like, I think that type of thing's kind of nonsensical sometimes, but at the same time, like the first time I met my now wife, I pretty much knew that she was at least going to be my girlfriend. Like within, a half hour of talking to her, type of thing.
Well,
so
you know, there's
can hit real fast.
Oh yeah, that's great.
The whole machine just for some ice.
Hey.
Now that ice being brown, I believe.
Yeah, what's going through that machine? I love that he's almost mocking his own invention. Like he's kind of just like subtly, like the way he looks at Marty and says it. He's like, "Yep, I know this is a little crazy, but what are you gonna do?" Mm-hmm. That stance right there too on the top of the stair, where he kind of squats down and he's just having a good time. I cannot imagine Christopher Lloyd not loving what he does. He's just the way that he acts. And I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming, but he the way that he presents, the way he acts, just all of his mannerisms. I can't imagine him not just really loving it personally.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that statement. And I think that 88 miles per hour.
His lower lip is like quivering.
Yeah.
I love that they even tried this with horses. Like It's not a horse in the world that could run that fast, let alone towing something.
No.
Actually,
It's just like, the thing is, maybe if you could find a straightaway that's like at a good enough angle downward to like be able to just let it go, but they'd probably have to get all the way up to the Sierras, and then who the heck knows if there's like a tree or something, right?
yeah. Well,
Smashing into a tree at 88 miles per hour.
now, okay,
Alcohol.
I do wonder. I wouldn't call this a plot hole, but I do wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Doc would have to have known how to make gasoline, and they had kerosene at this point, and gasoline is like literally a byproduct of kerosene. It wouldn't have been like that crazy hard to distill crude gasoline at this point. At least I don't think so.
That's probably what they were doing here, because but once this blows, it's done.
Okay, so can we bring up the first potential plot hole for like right here, like they just broke the car, because there is
potential plot hole.
Yeah, potential. I mean, it could have easily been explained away by a line from Doc Brown here, but the other DeLorean is here. Like the DeLorean that Doc Brown came back in that got struck by lightning at the end of 2, it's in the mine now. Like Doc's buried it. I'm assuming like it's physically somewhere out there in that mine as of like right now, right?
Yeah. It
Although
would be in the mine, he would have wrapped it up already.
If he had stolen a part from it, though, it wouldn't have been there. I mean, it would have created like right if he did that, it wouldn't have been. Well, I guess they would have had to just fix it.
They would have been able to fix it. So the way that this would be solved, because the whole thing is that the Mr. Fusion is no longer working. It's been knocked out by the lightning. He can't fix it.
Well, no, it's not that. It's that Mr. Fusion only powers the time circuits. It doesn't make the car drive. Mr. Fusion's fine.
I misunderstood that.
Yeah. Mr. Fusion's fine, but all it does is power it because it took the place of what the plutonium did in the first film.
That's right.
The car still drives on a regular engine.
I would say that I would use a throwaway line that I drained all of the gas because I knew that I needed to store it, and I was worried that it would eat away at XYZ components of the car, and I used it in a different invention a month ago, or something like that. It would have been an easy throwaway line. But the reason why that's such a big deal to me is that these movies are so stinking tightly written, right? That it needed to be there almost.
Yeah.
Because these things are so tightly written that to overlook even a little detail like that is like, bro, you are Back to the Future. You're better than this.
Yeah. Well, and again, I mean, Robert Gale and Zemeckis, when they're writing this, like you said, they nailed so many things. I love the fact too in the background there. Did you want to point that out? That there she was waiting to be picked up.
Yeah, Clara was right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm thinking of the Clara timeline, I guess, right now. It's like, I suppose that everything would have already happened with the past and everything. So the beloved Clara would probably still put the tombstone up or something. I don't know. But like, would it still be Clayton Ravine? Yada yada yada. So there's a little bit of confusion there. And yeah, because he was supposed to drive her, and if Marty wasn't there, he would be driving her, and she wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. So, and I think so it is one of those. It was named after her, yet. I mean, there's no. Anytime you get into a time travel story, it is so difficult to get away from kind of the themes of like destiny, right? The idioms of like fate, that certain things were just somehow gonna happen regardless. Some level of that, some version of that. It's really hard to have happen because in reality, this movie should have created another alternate timeline, right?
A small one, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're talking, the multi-universe theory, right, where there's, I mean, some differences are so minor that it's barely different, but that where they end up back at can't be exactly where we started in the first film.
And we already see that this does alter the timeline significantly, especially this moment it is no longer named Clayton Ravine
Yeah.
in the future.
It's Eastwood Ravine. Her hat falls down again.
Spoilers, man.
Oh, man.
She has a really weird type.
Blair.
Seriously.
No,
Weird type.
She's like that attracted to Doc Brown. How did they get her stuff out of the bottom of the ravine?
Well, they a couple things fell off of it.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
There is a scene where he tries grabbing a couple things and they fall off. So I think they just salvaged it.
Okay.
Yeah. Or they just, they went on a little bit of a hike.
Yeah. I do love, I mean, it's so, just not even homage. It is like a straight up copy that Marty's just wearing, Clint Eastwood's outfit from several of his films, most notably the Man from No Name trilogy.
I was going to say Man from No Name trilogy.
Yeah. But I mean, he also wore that poncho in, or variations of it in a few other films. But yeah, it's just such an iconic look, and that he has a proper cowboy hat again. The only thing he's missing is a little cigar.
Yeah, I don't think he'd look good with a cigar though, because he's so compact.
Yeah, Michael J. Fox is not a big man. Oh man, it's I do think though that as much as Claire's got a kind of a strange type, being attracted instantly to Doc Brown, that they do have a chemistry.
Maybe they just sense the science.
Yeah, I love that too. Behind her, like these massive spider webs are just kind of there in the background. Did you ever notice those in the doorway?
I didn't. No.
Yeah, it's just like
horrifying.
Yeah, that this house has probably not been used for a while. If this is like the official, like the teacher's house or something.
That would explain a lot about the town, especially Buford.
Yeah. Nice little country cottage, though. It just needs a little deep cleaning.
Looks like something right out of Coloma.
Yep. Very, very picturesque.
Yeah. That would be a heck of a thing to like be in. I mean, it's the subject of many a romance novel, but to be in the past and fall in love with somebody.
Yeah. I just love, again, too, just the little connections here. And, Marty would know this story and Doc necessarily wouldn't.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that. Marty is almost like the more knowledgeable one in this one. And I like that. There's this reversal of roles that's pretty nice,
Well, I really appreciate that they did. They let Doc kind of become the main character in the past here. And even though obviously, Marty doesn't get relegated to like a secondary character by any means, but Doc is not just here to kind of support Marty. He really has his own big arc in this film. And I love that because it shows that these are really co-stars in this film. That it's not Marty with the co-star of with like kind of the side character of Doc Brown, but they really are both just integral to the plot.
Yeah, these movies are very much like, you can sit here and say that this is a perfect example of a bromance. This is a perfect example of a teacher mentor. This is a perfect example of like a buddy cop thing almost,
Yeah. And
it's just like it fits for all of them.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons it's just so stinking good.
Yeah. Well, I think too it's if you can get a relationship and characters right, I mean, you can get away with a lot. And then when you can get a relationship and characters right, and you can write an amazing script, then I mean, you really have like that. That's kind of the holy grail, right? Where you can nail character and story. Because there's so many great stories that have mediocre characters, or great characters with mediocre stories. But when movies get them both, man, that's it, right? That's what everybody wants.
That's what we haven't gotten from something like Batman or Superman, like a Batman and Robin or a Batman and Superman, or a lot of duos that have been present in fiction, like comic books or literature. Those are the two that come to mind because I just love those things. I think the closest that we've come is like Deadpool and Wolverine.
And even there, not that the story by any means is bad, but it's not a script at the level of this.
It's nonsense. No, goodness no. But its script is good enough in terms of like the dialogue that they
Yeah.
exchange
Oh, yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah, it's I would call it highly serviceable. Like, yeah.
That's
I don't
a good way to put it.
yeah,
Very serviceable indeed.
yeah, I don't mean that like in a derogatory way, because there's serviceable and there's like no, it's really serviceable. Like you wouldn't go as far as to say this is amazing. You should like study this as an example of how to do it right. But by no means,
No, I wouldn't even call it good. It just works.
yeah. Well, it knows exactly what it wants to be and it just does it. So
yeah,
yeah. Man, Doc Brown plays. He really switches on the kind of guy I'm kind of smitten here. I just his whole mannerism changes when she walks in. Yeah, we just.
Have you ever been around a guy who's genuinely just 100% smitten?
Oh yeah,
like instantly.
I mean,
I remember working with this guy, and we got a new coworker, this girl Kelsey, and he was smitten.
Yeah,
he was smitten for like a year, and it was just like this every single time.
Yep. Well, it's the. I mean, the most fun examples are romance, but there's just all kinds of examples of people you meet where when they're around a particular person, it's like their entire personality changes.
Yeah, for good and bad.
Oh yeah,
I remember those days in high school.
It can definitely go in a bad way also. But yeah, when you see somebody who's, well, I am sorry if my kids ever listen to this particular episode, but yeah, I've seen all three of them with examples of subtle shifts in their behavior when all of a sudden it occurs to them that they might like somebody, and it's just it's so funny to watch as a parent because you're just like. Because, of course, they're not aware of it. That's what makes it so fun, is that usually the person changing is the last person to realize that they've shifted their behavior. So it's just fun.
Yeah, right?
All right, so...
I'm looking at that with a family friend of ours right now, and we're just like, don't do it. It's a bad idea.
Yeah. This is great. The whole just...
this whole festival.
I love the... just the symbolism with the clock and kind of, continually going back to it. The fireworks right there for the lightning strike. It's just, again, very, very symmetrical storytelling. Very much,
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
George Lucas. He's still got the
master of his craft, but that doesn't mean the craft is always good.
Yeah. The band is like not great. Although this is actually ZZ Top at some point here, right?
Mm-hmm. Also, do you remember how solemn Doc looked in the photo? And then Marty's like, smile! And then he himself doesn't smile. Yeah, this is ZZ Top right here.
Yep. Yeah.
I think they even do the guitar spin in the thing. It's
the drum spin.
Your thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he does. The drum spin. Yeah. Yeah. That's sad. I think all but one of them.
They wrote a song for this, actually.
They did. Yeah, it was in the credits. Double Tap by ZZ Top.
Wait, did you say they died?
Several of them have.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't really keep track of music, though. I learned about them from the show Bones. Because you find out that one of the characters is actually like the daughter of a member of ZZ Top, and he just plays himself.
That's right. What's her face? She's like the best friend and one of the lab.
Yeah, the horny friend.
Horny friend.
She's also like the profiler and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter. Her character's mainly known for being like a hippie.
Yeah.
Doc.
He's just been.
It's good acting.
It is fun.
It's such a feel-good movie, It
is. Well, and that's what I like. I was saying at the beginning. I like that these films manage to have so much fun. You can show them to your kids, but there's also jokes that adults get. But at their core, they're also just good movies about good people. And Doc and Marty, I mean, they screw some stuff up for sure, but ultimately they're characters that you can enjoy cheering on.
Yes, very, very true. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I love the old dancing. So this whole thing with the callback to shooting, with the video games and all that stuff, and just that the baby's toy comments in
right
in the Cafe 80. Cafe 80s.
By Elijah Wood.
Yes. Even a baby can do it.
I love that Doc can dance.
Well, and you have an interesting, like you were saying too, Marty's got some of the answers. You almost have a reversal. It's not just that Doc kind of gets center stage. You really have certain bits of reversal between their characters where Marty's almost the wiser one at times in this film. And
I think that's a really good reversal of roles.
okay. I do love the idea that a full Western like 45 though, that he would like be that good at it compared to a video game like Prop Gun.
I mean, would that be a 45 though?
A Colt Peacemaker? 100%. It wouldn't be an ACP. It'd be the old Colt 45. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there were versions that shot slightly different cartridges, but most likely it would have been the long Colt 45. So it's a longer cartridge than the modern day 45 ACP. That like a 1911 shoots. It's Strickland.
I forgot that they had him in this.
That's so good. And so I forget if this might have been, I believe this was an honest trailer about Top Gun, but the actor who plays Strickland, is Tom Cruise's boss in that movie, and they just labeled him 80s authority figure, and it's so true because it's just he's the embodiment of like just 80s authority figure.
Because he's in another one, right? Like another classic where he's like big angry authority man.
Yeah, he's basically played the same role in every film. Now, there's a deleted scene, correct? Where it's a little bit of a downer where he gets killed.
Mm-hmm. In front of his son.
Yeah, and they're like, maybe this movie needs to stay a little more cheerful.
Yeah, they even cut away. They even re-edit the scene so that when Buford Tannen is arrested at the end, they cut away while the guy is listing his charges because the charge was the murder of the marshal.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. He'd be the perfect voice of a leprechaun.
And I'm assuming he's supposed to be Irish, right?
Oh, yeah, very much so.
McFly. Now, I
Ashwood.
Yeah. Now, real historical reference, correct?
Uh-huh. The Frisbee Pie Company, they made these pans, and they were solid pans. They were used a lot for pie making. They got adopted during the gold rush and silver booms. And then, they realized that kids were playing with them, throwing them around, and so they turned it into a toy.
Yeah.
And that is quite literally the origin of the modern, beloved Frisbee.
Yeah. I mean, I love that, though, that little bit of just those little bits of trivia, because, when you see things that are like, they just have been, like, for your whole life, it's like, no, almost everything has an origin if you go back far enough.
Well, I mean, that's determinism.
Yeah.
If you want to get into predestination and theology on a Back to the Future thing, though predestination would kind of fit into it, I suppose.
Yeah. Little,
Is this supposed to be when he dies?
Well...
Like, is this supposed to be the date of his death?
Well, no, I don't think this is... Yeah, I think he says it right here. This is 2 days before it, so if he was shot, the idea that he took him 2 days to die. If he was shot here. I believe, because even that line there where he's like, I figure you'll be dead about separate time, on... that if he got shot in the back in the wrong spot, especially back then, you just have a slow, awful death.
Right? Especially like a belly shot or something.
Ah, man, yeah.
Like a gut nick. Which, for those of you unfamiliar, the worst possible spot that you could ever get shot is in your gut.
Yeah,
outside of the brain or the heart. But that's because if you get shot in the gut, you will die. But slowly. Slowly and painfully and horribly.
Thomas Wilson, he does the Schwarmy thing, just like, he's just so despicable here. Just, but I mean, I think too, the dirty face with just his big white of his eyes, it just works so well.
Oh, it's a fantastic affectation. It's one of those things. I can't remember the character off the top of my head, but there was this one character. I don't think it was Buford. I think it was another one. But essentially, the whole thing was um, to make sure that their eyes were really clear, and then they dirtied them up so that way their eyes looked big and bulgy and scary.
Yeah.
I think it was an orc, actually. I
Okay.
think it was the orc in Lord of the Rings, the one that kills Boromir.
Ah.
But I might be wrong on that.
I appreciate also with Tanner's character that they don't let his teeth stay perfect. They kind of dirty his teeth up too, because a lot of times in old, in like it's one of the giveaways in films when you have people who are like in ancient cultures or live really roughly and they still have like these perfectly capped teeth.
Yeah, that's true. Nobody calls me Yella. Where do you know the origin of the phrase yellow or yella in terms of a coward?
It's one of those. I know that I knew it at one point, and I forgotten it. I
You
apologize.
see, I'm at a similar point. I'm just like, dang it! I think I knew that once upon a time.
It has.
I don't remember what it was.
It has made room for other random facts.
Yep. Classic Western duel. At noon.
The
Yeah, you see, he's. This is pointed out because his journey in these films, Marty's journey, and especially in this movie, is the opposite of his father's journey in the first one. His dad needed to learn to be a little bit more, huh, go get him, stand up for yourself. Marty needs to cool it.
yeah.
And this is the movie where it's especially apparent that he needs to cool it.
Interesting. Oh, so I'm sorry. I was scanning really quickly. So, yellow as an insult actually is not a known idiom as far as its origin. The best guess is that it just comes from the stigma of being sick, not having strength and stamina. Kind of just the color of skin as it turns. Just from somebody who's really sick. But it is actually something with not a well canonized or established origin. Interesting.
Fascinating.
I do love the how we have like inflation in the future where like a Coke is like $50 or a Pepsi, and then in here it's like this perfect like amazing gun is $12.
Right.
Man, it's a beautiful gun and holster here, by the way. Like I
know, right?
When
is that a single action army?
Most of the yeah, it would have been for sure of this era, but I remember as a kid, I always thought like that gun and holster combo was just so cool.
Yeah.
So I read that a lot of the motivation for this film, kind of the idea of this film, actually came from Michael J. Fox way back. Basically talking about how much fun it would be if they got to go to the West. And not that he wrote the film or anything, but that I guess the idea was a lot from him back when they were kind of conceptualizing ideas, the first film.
Yeah, because when they were going through stuff, they were talking about like the 1960s and the 1970s and seeing like him being a part of like getting his mom back together with his dad after she goes like druggy hippie and he goes like scientisty nerdy or something like that.
Yeah, I love this right here. This is a scene that I think gets kind of passed on because it's right after a big climactic scene. The showdown and the duel and all that, and it's just a bit of dialogue there. But it is so key to like what you were just talking about with Marty learning the lesson of calming himself down, of not being so beholden to other people. And just reacting to them, and just that learning that he had a relative that was killed because he didn't know when to walk away.
And thinking about the future, and he thinks about it all the time, because you also have to consider, mere days before this, he saw himself in the future getting fired, and like his life pretty much being destroyed because of rash decision making.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. I really I appreciate, and this is like why I think showing these movies to your kids. I mean, not like super young, maybe, but like I mean, I showed these. I think my kids were between like kind of 8 and 12 when I showed them these films for the first time.
I'd seen. Oh, I'm sorry. Continue.
Well, I was just gonna say, but with the themes, my kids, even at that age, were like very open to the themes of just like, oh yeah, it's you got to keep your your temper under control, and you should kind of have this sense of wonder of like Doc has at the same time, like know when to stand up for yourself, like in the first one with his dad. And I mean, like those themes, even my kids at those young ages, they totally understood.
Yeah.
I like that.
My parents, my dad was okay with these movies. They weren't his favorite. He preferred more like heady science fiction. But I mean, he still liked them, of course. But my mom loved these ones. But she waited to show them to us because she thought that they said shit too much and that we'd start saying shit.
Yeah. Well, what's funny, I think I've said this. Well, I know I said this when we did a Wrath of Khan episode. When I watched these movies or any films when I was a kid, the only way my mom would let me watch them is if I muted the swear words. Like basically, if she heard the swear word over the TV because I didn't mute it in time, that it would that I would get in trouble basically. And I always
my mom would do similar things, not quite the same, but similar.
I always found it just hilarious that my mom never really thought about the fact that what that meant was that I memorized them all perfectly.
Right? No, my mom would be the one to mute things, or she'd have my older sister do it and stuff like that. And then eventually we just stopped.
Yeah.
Does this imply that he and Clara were out knocking boots?
It might. I mean, the way that Doc is when he runs into him here definitely is implying that he's had a good night, to say the least.
Did she show his butt?
I mean, there's definitely some cheek showing there.
Oh, cheeky lad.
Now, have you seen Taxi Driver?
No, I haven't. I know that you're talking to me.
Yeah, because I mean, I know you're not a Scorsese guy. I mean, this is such an iconic scene from that film.
Oh, of course, I've seen that scene. I mean, who hasn't seen that scene? I mean, I was shown that scene in a communication class once upon a time.
The little subtle people calling a mystery. The cigar. There's the cigar, and that is the same style of cigar that Clint would always smoke in his westerns.
Yeah, he's just suddenly a celebrity. Just some guy who wandered into town.
He's so short.
This guy's also just tall. This guy's been in things. He's a little character bit actor who's popped up in a couple things. So he'll be like a creature and stuff like that, like a Doug Jones before Doug Jones.
Yeah. Definitely smitten. I mean, there's a real cliche of when somebody's relationship hits a certain point that they do get this kind of strange, obvious gait.
Endorphins, man.
Yep.
It's the endorphins.
They are a real thing for sure.
Yeah.
Love that he still has the bullet hole in the hat. Like through both sides.
Present through the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and even the exit, like, the angle up higher back there.
You know what makes me so sad? Okay. So, Zemeckis is obviously just a master filmmaker. And so good with writing these tight scripts. Just think about everything that he's done, right? Even the weird animated stuff is all very tightly written.
Yeah. I wish.
And he was the one who George Lucas offered directly. Like, he offered several people, but he wanted Robert Zemeckis, his personal friend, to direct Star Wars Episode 1. Could you imagine that film?
Yeah. Oh,
imagine that film. There's another universe out there who has Robert Zemeckis Star Wars.
Well, there's a universe. There's a universe where Steven Spielberg directed Return of the Jedi, and Robert Zemeckis directed the prequel trilogy. And I don't even
Or Ron Howard.
Yeah. Well, and again, when you take George Lucas's ideas and you give them to a great screenwriter, you get magic.
Yeah.
Just-
But sometimes he decides to direct something himself, and you get
Yeah. And he doesn't
You
give
get-
somebody else a pass on his own scripts, which is like, George. We love you, George. Let somebody else take a final pass. Just trust me. It's going to be great.
It's
Just-
just like, but the alien that speaks with a Jamaican drawl is not gonna go over super well for everybody.
Yeah, how about we back that off? Just smidge.
Just a smidge. Let's turn him into a big lizard instead. And he talks like a big lizard. Give him a fun vocoder box.
Yeah. It's interesting here though too, because I find it interesting that this conversation here, he's talking about the future's not written, we can make it what we want, but they also have established in this universe that you change things and you are creating alternate timelines. Like this movie, kind of without saying it out loud, does completely acknowledge the fact that there's alternate timelines that are not good, and so anytime you do change things, you are taking a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
Uh,
Of course he's right.
oh man, every time I love the soft version of the theme that Sylvester had, where it's just little bits of the theme and just done just a little bit softer, a little bit slower.
Yeah.
It's just, oh man, the power of a good theme to just mentally, without you even consciously understanding, sometimes just kind of bringing you back to focus. Music cues are so subtly powerful.
Yeah. Very much so. Alan Silvestri is just one of my low key favorites. Because I don't think of him immediately when I think, oh, what amazing musical themes. But he's responsible for so many really good ones. But he's not often remembered among like Hans Zimmer and John Williams and such.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sad because he's definitely up there, deserves to be up there with people.
Yeah.
At least like Howard Shore and Michael Giacchino.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you kind of have your. I mean, if you go back far enough, there's obviously history and inspiration. John Williams did not invent, score, and he didn't even invent some of the key things that he brought into his music. But he is kind of the GOAT, and I think that you have to acknowledge that, especially in genre filmmaking and themes. But then you do have Hans Zimmer. You've got Howard Shore. Lord of the Rings just by itself, made Howard Shore one of the greats. For as weird as some of his music is, Danny Elfman's Batman theme is one of the most iconic,
that's true.
themes ever written. And you also have, Jerry Goldsmith with Star Trek. I mean, just phenomenal themes. But then you do have, James Horner, Alan Silvestri, James Newton Howard is another one that is an amazing composer.
I was going to say James Newton Howard.
Yeah.
I remember having just kind of a random playlist of themes and movie themes and stuff like that. And a friend of mine, you know him, Joe.
Yeah.
Very esoteric, artsy gentleman. And he's like, oh my gosh, what is this? This sounds like some sort of, classical piece by some master. And I'm like, this is music from The Hunger Games 3.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is James Newton Howard. And it was just this incredible piece called Air Raid. Very good music.
Huh.
Very mediocre movie.
The two biggest pieces, not biggest, but like the two standouts for me that James Newton Howard did, he co-wrote Batman Begins with Hans Zimmer. So he actually was hugely part of that, and that's a really interesting, moody track. And this is an odd pick, but he did the music for The Fugitive, the Harrison Ford film from the 90s.
Oh.
And that score is amazing. If you ever think about it, like, just jump in and listen to that soundtrack once. It's a really amazing score.
I'll one up you on that.
Go for it.
Lady in the Water. Okay.
I've never even seen that film.
Highly, at best, highly mediocre M. Night Shyamalan fantasy film that has promises of really good things but doesn't deliver. Incredible music to that. Absolutely fantastic climactic themes. The first time I heard it was sorry, this is what it's actually like to have sit and watch a movie with us. We're missing this fantastic stuff.
Oh, yeah.
We should be talking about it. But I'm like, no, M. Night Shyamalan Lady in the Water soundtrack is absolutely fantastic as a climactic theme.
Yeah. No, I was
for that.
I was thinking the same thing. Like this is like a pivotal scene in the movie, and it also is like such a callback to Marty telling Doc. But we both really love composers, and we go off on tangents. That's just how it goes sometimes.
Yep, and good things are found in strange places, even M. Night Shyamalan movies.
Yeah,
No, that's unfair to say because, like, oh my god, his soundtrack to Unbreakable is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, well, we could do a whole episode on just M. Night Shyamalan films, and wow, he's such a weird mixture of like genius and odd choices.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. I love this though, this scene, because it's something I kind of feel, because I myself am a huge lightweight.
Yes, you are.
I didn't used to be, but I certainly am now.
I love that there was like just a tiny bit of an implied story there. Like, do you remember the 4th of July? Like, you just
right
those little bits of like good storytelling where you just the implied history. You just need those little lines to be like, yep.
He's been here a while.
Now this little, you know about this, right? The tiny bit of origin here that this guy's holding barbed wire. That this, I forget the character's name, but this is a character who in history ends up becoming the founder of what would become Texaco.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
Okay,
I didn't remember that.
I do not know his name, but wire was becoming huge. Electricity, barbed wire was a big deal. He was a salesman who then, the sale of wire really exploded in this time in history, and he made his fortune, and then ended up buying it and starting the company that it was Texas something, and then eventually became
Texas
Texaco.
Oil Company.
Yeah, Texas Oil Company. And Texaco, and then obviously in the future, in Back to the Future 2. Texaco is heavily represented. So it's just a fun little nod to like the origin of another, piece of the timeline.
Yeah. Does Texaco still exist?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've got one down the street.
We don't have a lot of them in my
area.
No,
it's definitely not nearly as big as it used to be, but no, they're still there's still a pretty big chain. They're bigger in the Midwest.
It did at least last into the 2015. So there we go.
Yeah. He's like apparently been here just telling people about the future like all night.
Right.
This guy's voice is so distinct. This old timer.
I've heard him in things.
I feel like he's done voice work too, like in animated.
Oh yeah, no, he definitely has. I can hear it. Crap, I can see a character from something. I can't remember what it was. I like that little scene with Tannen there at the river. He's like, "Where are you going?" "I'm hungry," because he wants to kill and then go eat.
Yep. Well, and they even have the little, I killed. I'm gonna kill him before breakfast versus after breakfast.
Yeah.
Mm. Now, so this is, this whole sequence. I did love that they actually set this up in 2, with the obviously watching the clip and all the Clint Eastwood stuff, but again, you can really tell that 2 and 3 were written at similar, kind of together.
Yeah,
because of the with the way the gunfight goes here. Now, is the instant drunk, like pass out thing, is this a reference that I'm not aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. if it is, I've never seen it. I've never seen it happen to anybody either. Myself, even as a huge lightweight, you know, that'll get into real tipsy after 2 beers, if not 1 beer, depending on how much I've eaten.
Yeah. My
It's a grand old time.
my dear wife, and I love her so much.
Oh my God,
she is one glass of wine, and she is a happy person already.
Oh yeah. No, we've had drinks together, you know.
Oh yeah, yep. Oh man.
And Brian's over here, and he's a mule.
Yeah, I can drink quite a bit. Maybe I'll tell a story with Dan someday. Now this is, I don't know if it's directly a callback to the film I'm going to reference, but I know that there is one of my favorite westerns ever, and it's a John Wayne and Robert Mitchum western called El Dorado. And there is a great scene where they actually list off the ingredients in like the idea of like a sober up and a concoction, and it does have a lot of what's in this, and it's I think it might be reference to that.
I would believe that. I would very much believe that.
Oh man,
God,
it's so bad. Oh, this is so good. The horse trough, because again, I mean earlier where you said if you want water, go out to the horse trough. So there you go.
It is.
It's oh goodness.
That was just a reflex action. Love it so much.
Oh goodness. So
131.
I do think trains are just cool.
Yeah,
There's just something cool
They
about
are.
trains. Yeah.
it's just big machines.
Yes.
And men like big machines.
Well, and they were like
Bunga bunga.
yeah. Well, and they really were such an incredible and powerful symbol of the modernization of the world. I mean, steam engines, and I mean it was like steam engines. Obviously we basically weren't reliant on the wind anymore, and then steam engines on tracks meant we weren't reliant on horses anymore. We could just move, massive amounts, over long distances on our own power. It really was kind of the symbol of like we now control our own, kind of destiny in a way.
The way that I've heard it described is that it was a moment in which we overcame nature more than we had ever done so before.
Yeah. Yeah, because almost so much technology before then, we were relying on a natural phenomenon in order to, we were just trying to capitalize on something we had no control over. And instead of, no, now we've captured, nature, ourselves, and now we get to utilize it when we want to, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Anyways.
He likes Clint Eastwood.
Just.
He's like, great, now I die.
I feel like, too, I mean, I think Michael J. Fox, sometimes his acting doesn't get, like, I mean, he's known for being very funny, right? Very charismatic. But he has a lot of nuance to his acting here, where he's like, he's kind of really striking a good balance. You can see in his eyes there and his voice, just of like, he doesn't want to go, fight this guy, but at the same time, he's got, the reactions. And I feel like this is a scene that showcases he's a good actor.
Yeah, he's got some subtlety, I would say.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not, trying to say that he's a, who's that super famous method actor who played Lincoln?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis, You're a coward.
The rest of your day.
This is.
I don't know.
This whole saloon.
An eclectic group of people.
Yeah, everybody here is just great.
Yeah.
That his teeth.
He's so gross.
Yeah. It's right here. He didn't know the next number. Oh, it's good. Oh.
And that scene, even when I was a kid, just because of where the guy's standing next to the horse, I genuinely thought that he was, I thought that it was his hair, the horse's tail. I thought he had super long hair. And I can't unsee it every single time.
That guy's, man, some good faces. Just some amazing.
And this is like a good face. I don't know. It's got gravitas to it.
It does. It really does.
Just you gutless yellow pie slinger.
Oh man,
I'm fairly certain that I think it was Red Dead Redemption 2 has somebody who, if you're in the right spot, will call you that.
no, that's great. I do love that moment though too of just because it's such a, I mean, the tonal shift of all of a sudden Barty just going like, it's an ale. I'm not going out there. Just,
Yeah.
I really miss Tylenol.
And one of the things is the sound effects, because they had better gun sound effects by this time, right?
Yeah.
But they're still just like, no, we're using the old Western gun sound effects right now.
Everything sounds like it's like bouncing off stuff and just
because that's what they did. They got the sound effects from ricocheting bullets off of steel next to a microphone.
Yeah. Well, this guy right back here, he's again, this is the guy that had the barbed wire and was talking to Doc. And it's just a great little,
Mm-hmm. And that's that moment where it's just like, could you imagine being in that situation where somebody tells you they're a time traveler, and then you have reason to almost believe them? It'd be so bizarre, that suspension of reality for that one moment where, like, wait a second, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been in that particular situation myself. And if I had, I certainly wouldn't say something in fear of collapsing the time-space continuum, but I'm sure that it is bizarre.
I love the way that she describes puppy dog eyes. Her little sigh is so just like, it's very iconic in a way.
Yeah, very true.
That's such an iconic shot there too of just the train coming right at the camera and just stopping right at the lens.
That's one of those things that's just about these movies. They love things coming right at the camera.
Oh yeah.
And
her actions there too. If she hadn't stopped the train there, they wouldn't have been able to use it. Like that, her stopping it and delaying it right there is the only reason they were able to catch it later.
Yeah, very true.
Although we are about to get to kind of the last big plot element that's interesting here, right?
Oh yeah, interesting. No, it's downright broken. Broken plot element. And I feel like I know what they were thinking with it, but they didn't do it, But we'll get into it in a moment, because what we have here is we have a classic duel.
Oh yeah, I mean,
they're in the middle of the street, in the middle of the town, hands over the guns.
I mean, this is shot so much like one of the Sergei Leone. The way he shot his duels.
Yeah. Though this part, I remember when I was a kid, I was disappointed. I'm like, no, dude, you should have been a man and shot him. Be an action hero. As I'm older, I'm like,
So I guess here, is he challenging him to a fist fight?
I don't know.
When he said, I thought we could settle this like men, was he like, is that what that was?
I don't know.
Oh, so okay.
I always loved this.
Another little reference, which is, this is very much like that shot for shot. Have you ever seen The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance?
Nope.
Okay, so classic Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne, and what's his name? Famous.
John Wayne?
No. He was famous for Dirty.
John Wayne.
No. Not Lee Ermey. My mom. No. John Wayne's in it, but there's another one. My mom is gonna kill me if she ever hears this for not remembering his name. He was famous for in The Dirty Dozen. And
I genuinely don't know, man.
Okay. Anyways,
I don't watch
his character, he's the villain in that film, and that's a fantastic movie, by the way. That they very much based Tanner's character in this on his character in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and that whole scene where he kind of like looks and kind of goes limp wristed and has his gun out and kind of It's just it is dead on a copy from a scene from that film. So, anyways, and of course the manure.
Oh yeah. No, well, so many things happened in that scene. Okay, he does the chest thing, which we saw in the second one. You know, we saw that scene of Clint Eastwood doing that in part 2, and then when he throws him into the stones, into the gravestones, he cracks the gravestone from the picture, and then he falls in when he's punched. It's the same shot as when George punched Biff, and then he falls into the manure. It's just fantastic.
For anybody listening, I'm sorry, it was Lee Marvin is the actor I was trying to think of, and I'm sorry to anybody who was screaming at the recording right then. Lee Marvin, fantastic actor.
Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, here's the train. All right.
Yeah.
So
run us through this.
The plot hole is essentially that there's no reason that they need to catch this particular train. They could theoretically get any other train.
Yeah. There's no rush here.
No, there's no rush. There's a little bit of an idea that it's because the DeLorean's on the tracks or something like that. Maybe that's it. A bunch of others think you saw Biff's baddies run away. They abandoned Biff, or Mad Dog Tannen. And he, so it's just like, it would be easy for there to be something that, they're coming after him, and they're gonna come get him in vengeance for Biff. You know?
Yeah.
Tannen, his name's not Biff.
I know,
He's Biff.
but he's Biff. Yeah, he's Biff.
Yeah. Biffed it.
You would really not want to run your horses right down the middle of this track, by the way. It's just really hard on them.
Yeah. I don't think they're thinking about the horses.
No. But yeah, I totally get it from just a film pacing that you would want to keep the energy going here.
Mm-hmm.
And of course you got the theme kicking in there, and it's great.
This one does seem to have a little bit more distinct music than the second one also.
Well, I think they use the theme more.
But also the music just feels different, you know?
I mean, the whole train heist thing, though, I mean, it's just, again, it's a classic Western trope, right? You just got to go with it because you got to. Although, at this point, this train is so far away. The poor horse trying to catch up with this train is just...
I mean, maybe the track curves.
Yeah, maybe.
I know, we could go look at the maps on the back. And that definitely wasn't Christopher Lloyd. And the thing is, some of these are either excellent green screen, or they're not green screen.
Oh, I think they did a lot of this for real. I mean, they had a real train. I mean, if you have a train going, 10 miles an hour, and you get the right stunt guys, it's not that bad.
Yeah. Okay, so here's one of my favorite little Easter eggs. Right, his mask. That Doc Brown, Emmett. Wow. Okay, first name basis. He must be my friend. Emmett. So Doc Brown here, he pulls up that mask. The mask is his shirt from the second one. The one with the trains and...
Yeah. I had never noticed that. That's awesome.
No.
Oh, this is how she catches up because they stopped the train. Duh. I don't know how she's able to catch up because they stopped the train here.
Yeah. There you go. Wow, perfect timing.
Yeah.
See,
those little
things like that.
Yeah, those details are great.
Mm-hmm.
Also, too, I love the fact that there's no reason to show the close up of the coupler, but it's still just a cool mechanism to show, and just those little bits of filmmaking that add. I love his excitement here. He rings the whistle and he's just like all excited. Puts on the engineer hat right away.
Yeah, he's
loving it.
Robbed a train, He's living the dream, man. He's living the dream.
Well, and I think that's the other thing too about these films. The characters don't this happens in a lot of genre films where it's like the main characters, it's almost like they aren't aware of the circumstances they're in. And in this film, it's like, no, they totally get like, this is crazy. This is awesome. Do you see where we are right now? That there's an appreciation for a recognition for the extraordinary circumstances that they are in.
Yeah. It reminds me of actually another Michael J. Fox movie. Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
Aw. One of the gems that didn't get the attention it deserved in that era of Disney.
Yes and no. It's one of those things we're watching it because I actually recently rewatched it because my wife had never seen it and I was curious about it.
I like it a lot.
It is fun. I like it a lot in a lot of ways, but you can also see, oh man, just how rushed it is. It's like an hour and 40 minutes long, and it blows through everything so quickly. It needed breathing room, but they didn't have the budget or something.
I thought the story was awesome. The art style I thought was so cool. The voice work there's a lot of really good voice actors.
Oh, fantastic. No, I have this kind of obsession, especially around that time, with Atlantis. Like, it's literally the reason I got into Stargate is because I saw a big poster for Stargate Atlantis, and I'm like, I want to watch that show. And so I really liked that movie as a kid, and I still really do have a love for it, but it's also one of the things that I wish was just a little better.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. It's one of those, I guess, when I think about it objectively, I can see those, but it's never decreased my enjoyment whenever it does come out from like, I mean, I haven't watched it in a while, but it was one that when, my kids went through a phase for sure where that was a regular one for my kids.
Oh, heck yeah, Tecton. I like the batteries, the little old-timey copper spool batteries that they have strapped to the back of the walkie-talkies. That's a detail I always thought was really funny.
Well, to keep them working, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, they wouldn't find AAAs, but I mean, again, this movie, not just this movie, this trilogy, its details are so many, and for the most part, so well done, and that's why when there are the occasional
plot holes, snafus,
oversights, I'll say it that way, oversights, they stand out more than they usually would.
Yeah, it's like how you'll have these directors who make incredible movies all the time, and then they have one that's like not as good, but you're sitting there, it's just like, oh, why did he make such a crap movie or something like that? And then you're like, is it crap? Or is it just like not up to snuff?
Yeah.
Well,
that's where I do feel not bad, but I do try to keep that in mind. Like when you judge like a film by Spielberg or Zemeckis or
Christopher Nolan,
and it's it's not amazing, but you're like, well, but he set his own bar, and like, well, we were talking about this in Minority Report a little bit earlier this year, that Spielberg, he had already, I mean, like he had at that point how many of the iconic films of the 80s, the late 70s and 80s and early 90s he had already made. And so he, at that point it's like, all right, so like what is he supposed to do to like make you like think about him that way again? And it's difficult for sure. And you try to keep that in mind when it comes to judging filmmakers.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
And even like Zemeckis, like part of me would love to see him just make, I mean, this is a weird way to put it, but like a little bit more of a conventional film again, because he seems to only kind of want to do the oddball animated. So it's like, he's kind of just doing, things that are interesting to him. But
which, that's all right.
And that's fine. I mean, he's obviously earned that. But he made this trilogy, Forrest Gump, the Castaway. I mean, he really, has a lot of these big films that are just really well made. And then you get Polar Express, and what was that Beowulf one he did? That was like really weird.
So then there was Nightmare Before. No, Christmas Carol. Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas Carol, and it's just like, all right, it's but and I mean it's fine. Like he can do whatever he wants, but I think part of me just like wishes that he would kind of come back and just make another, like jump back into the genre and just like a regular film in a way.
Oh, you wanted to make like Back to the Future 4?
No, Absolutely do not. This trilogy is perfect. Leave it alone.
Right?
Or it's as close to
it's okay, they
perfect
will.
as a trilogy could be.
Tell that to the Lord of the Rings extended editions.
um, although a movie that he did that not that it doesn't get attention, I think it has gotten attention because it is well regarded. But a movie with Denzel Washington called Flight.
Oh, Flight! I remember Flight.
That is a very one of the best movies about addictions ever made.
Yeah, I remember I wanted to see that movie, but it came out when I was like not quite an adult. And then like one of the whole things is that he has like a big scene with like a topless prostitute
Yeah,
that goes on for a really long time.
it's basically the opening of the film. It's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, once you get past
'Cause-
that, you're pretty much done. But it's I mean, I saw that film when I was working in addiction work, with foster kids, and it is such an amazing depiction. It's one of the best depictions of addiction I've ever seen on film, like bar none.
Yeah. I've heard that it's underrated in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, it's not flashy, and that's where I think it's just Denzel Washington giving an amazing performance in a very tightly made film. That yeah, but again, it's not flashy. It's a character piece. So, anyways, is this another? We're like talking over this amazing climactic sequence. Is this another example of the 50-mile long runway?
Not necessarily. They needed a really long time to get the thing up to the proper speeds. So, I mean, maybe if you went and compared it completely, but they also do throw in these landmarks that they had priorly established.
Yeah.
He mentions them passing the windmill. They have them hitting the sign. You see the mile counter ticking up ever so slowly. So you know that there's...
Oh, I do love
momentum.
seeing Doc on the hoverboard. Was just a very satisfying, like, good for them,
Yeah. It's one of those things. It brings all of the events of the trilogy together really well in one kind of climactic scene.
Yeah. Love he just kind of floats off to the left. It's like, all right, we're good.
He doesn't know how to ride a skateboard.
Well, he had, he was going 80 miles an hour, so we already had some momentum there.
Right?
This is, I love this. I love he puts on the hat. He just.
Why did he put on the hat?
Yeah, because it looks better.
That's true.
And I think every film has had that panning shot across the date on the time computer, right?
Yeah.
It's a great shot of the train. I mean, I'm assuming this is a miniature, but it's really well done.
No.
Was this real?
Look at the background and everything, man.
Oh yeah, those.
Look at the dust. Look at the debris.
It's all the right. It's all the right size. Train. Well, that was a slightly comped explosion there.
Yeah, definitely.
But okay, yeah, you're right, because with miniatures you can tell because dust and water don't behave the right way.
No, because it was one of those things where they were talking to this guy, the train conductor, and they're like, "Would you be willing to do this?" And like, essentially, like, learn some stunt work so you can get off soon enough and be okay with you doing this to one of the old trains. And he was literally like, "I've wanted to do this my whole career."
I always love this with just everybody like it's that great little like, all right, just act natural as I'm like, in this extraordinary situation. Yeah, it doesn't need any commentary. It just everything you need to by. Also, too, they do this so fast. Just the immediate like.
Yeah.
That was, I believe, that was one of the real DeLoreans too, right?
Yeah.
And you can tell that was not a miniature. That was a real car-sized something being destroyed there.
And it's sad, like it's like losing a character.
Yeah.
Because it's the last DeLorean. There's no more. There's not one hiding in a cave.
Yep.
There's no way to get it back. There's no way to do it again. And Doc Brown's gone. There's no way to build another one.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
But
do you think
so sad.
This is not a fully realized thought, but a question.
Okay.
I think that this movie could have ended without Doc coming back here and having this moment, and it would have worked really well.
I agree. It could have. In fact, I know that my dad didn't like the ending. I know that I echo a lot of what my parents did, but with movies that I saw when I was younger, their opinions helped form how I see stories. I actually really like this ending.
Yeah,
I'm not.
You can sing. Oh, but I mean, yeah, and I'm not by any means saying that it's not. It's not a bad ending. But I think there's a version where like Marty could have kind of learned the last lesson to kind of let go and just be like to kind of move on with his life a little bit and know that Doc's happy. And there could have been a version of that could have been very effective here. But I also do enjoy. Oh, so I love the fact that the little Superman cameo, that's Jimmy Olsen.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
From Christopher Reeve Superman, yeah.
And they also don't have a moment with his dad, which is a little bit of a loss in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think that they just didn't want to have to deal with the replacement actor, right?
Yeah, they didn't want to have to deal with that, because imagine if they'd been able to kind of come full circle on that. Imagine if he had something on him or with him that kind of echoes back to the Darth Vader thing from the first one. And you kind of have a moment where maybe the dad realizes what's happened.
Yeah, or at least suspects it. Like just that moment of like, huh.
He's a science fiction writer, you know? There's stuff to it.
I always thought
this time it's not just a horrible wig. You know? It's like the quality of the wig is so much better.
Yeah, I always would have liked a callback to I think it was Van Halen, right? That he played in the Walkman to wake his dad up in that scene. I always thought that like because music is such an interesting kind of mental callback, like a memory recall quality, that they could have had something with music that would have been a trigger.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, Hilldale. And her kind of realization. Oh man, needles.
Yep.
And of course we have the return of the song written for this film.
Yeah. I never realized that, because this was a song I listened to a lot as a kid. I didn't know that it was actually written for it. I thought it was just a song that was in a movie.
Yeah, no, Huey Lewis and the News was a big deal, but he wrote it for this. Man, Needles is just like, man, whoever that actor is really just nails the. This.
He's not an actor. He's a musician.
Okay, he's. I mean, he's great.
Crap, I can't remember exactly who he is. Oh, it's Flea.
Okay.
Yeah. Ugly man.
Oh, he's
ugly
just
man.
Yeah.
So, if you know Cars and you're looking closely, you can actually tell that he put it into reverse.
Yeah. Man, this though, I mean, the moment was right here. Again, the idea that even that this moment was almost kind of predestined, so to speak, because if he hadn't come back and woken her up at that time on that porch and been driving, this accident all was, again, that it's kind of all meant to be. It's fun.
Yeah, and she was the one who heard the whole thing about the accident with the Rolls Royce. That's not something he would have known about.
No. Which I mean, and that makes it better.
Having her have like a full circle.
Yeah. Well, and I love the fact that he learned the lesson without hearing that particular story too. I mean, he got to see his own. Well, no, he didn't. He never saw his older self, right? He only saw his younger self in 2.
I don't.
No, he.
Oh dang! I don't remember.
No, that was all from her perspective, because she was the one in the house.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
all he saw was his his kid, who was just such a loser in the Cafe 80s.
Hopefully, the kid grows up a little bit better now that his dad's not terrible and wussy.
Yep. I did think that this train was very cool as a kid. And again, it's
as
very
a kid. Look
yeah.
at this thing.
I mean, well, and it's also, this is very Jules Verne-esque as far as just the design and the whole vibe, like that very
steampunk.
Oh,
man.
yeah. But it's like clean steampunk, you know, like it has that kind of steampunk, but like it's not dirty and like dark. It's like kind of it looks like it belongs in classic literature.
Yeah.
Now this one kid. Now do you
yeah.
This kid is like
You
giving
do.
like the Death and he's like pointing, like, right, this is the thing here. I'm like, okay, I'm looking for it. He's like pointing to his own penis.
No, he's like, at one point he's kind of touching his crotch because he was kind of trying to tell his mom that he had to go pee, and that's the take they decided to use.
Yeah.
Also, I noticed this. The kid on the right, Vern, does he look like our friend Dan's youngest child?
Oh,
Christian?
100%. 100%.
So much like him.
Yeah.
Well,
it's great that he got
weirdo.
they got this photo, which is just cool. And of course,
Yeah.
the clock is on the time, right? That the whole thing ended.
Yes.
It's blank, or it's erased.
She didn't get it.
So he's like, he's like, like motioning to himself and then pointing. It's really weird when you see it.
And now you'll never be able to unsee it.
Yeah, it's like with the first time you see the stormtrooper hit his head in Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, you can't help but not see that every time.
I'm not a fan of George Lucas's re-edits, but adding the little bonk sound effect,
I love
I'm here for
that.
it.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
Already been there. I love it.
The train's flying.
Yeah, yeah. And also, did you notice that the doors of the train open like the DeLorean?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, good.
It's fun. The theme kicks in. Although the idea, like, nobody else is like.
Excuse me. I think
there's
a flying.
There's
train.
a flying train. Oh man, and I love that they just give it the end, and because we've had the.
So that way
it's over.
This is not going to be the further adventures of Doc the Train Man.
There is. So, two things I wanted to comment on is this movie's in this trilogy is such a great example of one, endings are really hard. And anytime you can end a story fairly well. Anytime we love to talk about the ending of series and finales and all those, and there's always, especially the ambitious ones, right, that people will criticize or not like, or there's very controversial. And it's like, try writing an ending to a big epic story, especially like a big story, a genre story, and wrap up a lot of plot. I'm not saying that it excuses a bad job, but it's freaking hard. And I respect anybody who's, it's easy to criticize, but it's like, go do it. Go try to write, as much as we like to trash on JJ, and I will happily trash on JJ. It's much easier.
J.J. Abrams, for those not sure.
Yes, J.J. As much as it's it's a mystery box, the whole like setting things up, it can be a very potent storytelling technique, but it's a whole lot easier to set up a mystery than it is to end it. And if you're gonna tease something hard, you better be able to deliver. And this is just, it wraps up so beautifully. The other thing I was gonna say is knowing when
not Lost.
I've actually not finished Fringe, so I don't actually know how that ends, but we can talk about that later. The other thing is just knowing when to finish. Like, we did our trilogy, we told our story, now move on. And just the
Fringe, not Lost.
Oh, that's what you're another example of the same thing.
It's just both of those were J.J. Abrams shows. Fringe had an ending that was like planned out since like the second or third season or something like that. They knew that they were going to end it after a certain amount of seasons, so they weren't going to continue on too long and get overly convoluted, but have an ending that made sense for it, despite a lot of overly convoluted things in it. And so it's one of those where I thought that it was J.J. Abrams growing, but at that point he kind of had his hands off the wheel.
Yeah.
Whereas Lost was just like...
Well, Lost, JJ had nothing to do with the ending of Lost also. He was completely out of the writer's room at that point. That was much more Damon Lindelof was responsible for that one.
Yes.
And Carlton Cruise, I think. Carlton Cruise and David Lowe. And see, no, and I know that we can really go down this. I'm actually a defender of Lost's ending. I quite like that show, and I will happily talk about that in some other show or conversation.
Ryan, you need to go sit in a corner. You need to go sit in a corner.
But anyways, there is something to be said about ending a story on your own terms and just letting, instead of just, I am sure there was studio pressure to be like, these are huge films. Can't we do another one? Can't we do another one? And just be like, no.
They talked about it. There was talk about a fourth one where Marty would be present, but he'd be like a background character. And some of the story ideas that they even talked about were recycled for a 2-season animated series that they made about the Brown family and a Telltale video game series that they made.
Well, that actually was canon, right? That Telltale game? Or at least
I believe that they considered it canon.
Yeah. But I mean, what I think about is I am sure there was somebody at a studio level, that who just is watching receipts of these films, just going like, well, why wouldn't you just keep making them? Because he's the guy that the only thing that crosses his mind is how much money these are bringing in, and the creative concerns never even enter that guy's brain, and those are just, and I know I'm speaking in broad general terms here, but those people, and you need people, to keep the books and run the business, and if you let your super creative, ambitious types just do whatever they wanted, you literally wouldn't be able to make movies because everybody would be bankrupt.
Coppola.
Yeah, but you can't go the other direction where you just go crazy on the, we're just, this is just a machine to make money, and the creative concerns are a distant second. And that's where you get just overly safe, overly formulaic, product, content. I mean, those words that we get a lot now that we have streaming services. And I love it whenever a movie's like, no, this is our story and we're done now.
Yeah. I think of things like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Even like Star Trek Picard, though a whole different discussion there. But at least they knew that they were going to end it after 3 seasons.
Yeah.
They had a plan, and even though the beginning and middle didn't really satisfy the end,
and even there, that last season was received so well, but they still were like, all right, we're not going to all of a sudden change our mind because people like us, and so let's keep let's take that goodwill and then ruin it again by outstaying our welcome.
Yeah. And so many series need to know when to stop and when to take a breath. Like, I believe that Star Wars has life in it, but they tried too hard to push all this content, push all this just stuff when it needed to breathe. And now they're just kind of screwing it up, just trying to get things out the pipe.
Yeah.
And it's sad to the point of depressing sometimes when or other series that we've talked about on here before. Terminator. Alien. Predator. It's just like,
yep,
it's time to stop.
Yeah.
And I would love for there to be endless Predator movies that are just cool bullcrap, but they for some reason keep screwing it up.
Yeah. And it's one of those, and then there's other examples too where things that are still have a lot of life to them are cut short. I would have loved to have seen where Atlantis and Stargate Universe had gone if they had been given some more time, stuff like that.
So. Right. But no, they had to Battlestar Galactica, the franchise.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see sad, depressing Stargate. Stargate's fun.
It is.
Goofy, even.
Although, man, as much as I hated Universe at the beginning, I ended up just loving it. And
once it started finding its own feet,
Yeah.
Yeah. really becoming its own show and lighten up a little bit,
Yep.
have a little bit more fun. Get away from the Battlestar Galactica esoteric spiritualism, I'm pregnant and it's yours bullcrap.
Yeah. But
I'll never forgive that.
that's
They
our,
literally had an I'm pregnant and it's yours.
yes, they did have those moments. Very soap opera-y stuff. But we'll save that for our Stargate podcast. Coming sometime in the future.
2028.
We could totally do just Stargate for like years.
Would
I mean, how many episodes is that?
Would-
One a week?
I believe it's 2. Okay, so that's going to be 10 seasons plus 5 seasons plus
Plus
2
2
seasons
seasons.
plus 3 movies plus 1 web series.
Yeah.
So we're probably looking at somewhere in the area of 350 episodes.
Yeah, that's a good. You can do that. But
I'm
this
into
this has been Back to the Future Part
One a
3.
day. One a day.
One a day.
For a year.
Oh man, our wives might kill us.
We have to be getting paid really well.
So if you want to see that,
6 hours a day that we're getting content and researching, 2 hours for recording, and we just pump them out.
well, if you want to see that, you want us to do that, you gotta tell your friends, get subscribed, and we can start making some money off this thing. Anyways, we honestly do this because we just love hanging out and enjoying these kind of stories together. It's this has been such a good trilogy. I mean, we got to start this with our amazing friend Dan, who got to come and join us for an episode, which was great, and wrapping this up now. I mean, this is just one of those all-time great trilogies, a staple of the genre, and deserves all of its classic, status that it has. It deserves all of it.
Like, I'm excited to get to some other movies, but I'm gonna miss having this much fun doing movies and being just like, oh, look how fun this is, look how cool this is, look at how well written, look at how tightly written. Because you know that we're gonna be getting back to some movies in the near future that's like, we end it by saying, so how would you fix this?
Yes. Yeah, we've got some Marvel stuff coming up that it's not quite this good, to put it lightly.
To put it very lightly.
Yeah.
I will say one thing about this series that is wonderful is that at this time they will never make more, because Robert Zemeckis has said they will never make more. As long as he is alive, he holds the rights, and supposedly he's worked towards securing something for even after he dies, so that they legally cannot make any more Back to the Future properties. They cannot ruin what he considers to be his masterpiece after he dies.
He doesn't want to.
Him and the other writer, Gale, I believe his name is.
Bob Gale, yeah. Yeah,
Bob Gale.
He doesn't want to sell it for Disney for a couple $2 billion.
George, I know what you were doing, but wrong choice.
Yeah. Anyway,
how dare you pick raising your daughter over Star Wars?
I don't mind George stepping away. It was just who he sold it to. Goodness.
Yeah, he should have gotten it in writing that certain scripts were going to be adapted instead of new stuff.
Yeah. Well, then I wish he hadn't sold it to I guess the only people that could afford it would be like a studio, but I wish he had sold it to more of like a caretaker. I don't know, given it to Spielberg's company, or to just like found something a little less commercial than what Disney has turned into.
I think selling it to Disney was, in theory, the right choice, but I think what should have happened is that he should have picked scripts, and he should have picked a director and been like, if you make these 3 scripts with these people, and then you can have whatever's left.
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting alternate universes there, but either way, we'd probably wrap this up.
Time.
Yeah, we will be revisiting Star Wars next year, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot then.
So much.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, because I love these movies. I love talking about them. Back to the Future is incredible, as we've just been reiterating over and over and over and over and over. Amazing films. Thank you so much for sticking through all of them with us.
Oh, thank you so much. drop us a comment, a like, feedback of any kind. We appreciate it. But we'll be back next week with another film that will probably not be quite as good as this, but we're still looking forward to it.
Exactly. And I don't even know which one it is because who knows how the release order is going right now. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
There's doors and corners, kid. If you don't clear the room, if you don't come in slow,